Hello, everyone. If you are wondering what the LGBTQ plus community and allies are doing to respond to this moment, you are in for a treat. I'm Maya May, mom of a trans teen, and I'm here with Kelley Robinson, who is the president of HRC, which is the nation's largest LGBTQ plus advocacy organization, and also formerly from Planned Parenthood as well, right, Kelley?
That's right. That's right. Look, I've been in the social justice game for a minute. And I'm excited to be here with you, Maya May, mama and fighter. Okay.
Trying to do it all, balancing it all in a time of chaos, in a time of poly crises. We were just talking right before the show that the first time that we met, the only time we met was during the DNC, and those were brighter times.
That's true. That's true. But look, I just know that brighter days are ahead too. Because, like you said, people are clear. People are clear about all of the crises and challenges in front of us. And, one of my mentors, Alexis McGill Johnson, the president of Planned Parenthood, she always says in moments of crisis, transformation is possible. And that's where we are.
Well, sometimes that's what has to happen is crisis to force change. And so we're in a week leading up to No Kings. I see you're wearing yellow. Is this in honor of the movement, or is this just looking for brighter days so you're dressing as you want to be?
All of the above. Look, we have millions of people that are ready to take to the streets. And for me, I think No Kings is so powerful because it's given everyone a chance to do something, no matter where you are. And to me, the most important thing about this is that these are regular folks, people that are going about their daily lives, but understand the crisis in front of us and have decided to stand up. Thousands of events, or over 3,000 events happening this weekend alone, led by folks who just give a crap about what's happening and have decided to do something. So I'm going to be at the No Kings March in Los Angeles. And I know we've got HRC members and supporters showing up all across the country.
And I'm going to be in Lisbon, and I'm going to be speaking at No Kings. So
Wow.
excited about that, especially because, and we'll get to this a little bit on in the show, but all of the anti-trans legislation that has been happening in the US, turns out Europeans are learning from that. And so we have this sort of global fight going on. And so I want to talk to you towards the end of the show about the global fight and how we can all work together. But before we get into it, can you tell us a little bit about what HRC is doing right now in response to all of the most recent anti-trans legislation? I mean, you even see Trump trying to push things into the quote unquote Save America Act, which I call I call it the Voter Exclusion Act. So can you talk a little bit about what HRC is doing in respect to that?
Yes. Well, first I have to say these people are obsessed with the LGBTQ plus community, obsessed with trans lives, and taking such dangerous actions to make life harder. And I mean, you mentioned this. There are so many crises. There's a global war that's happening across the world. Eggs are sky high. I was trying to buy gas the other day and it brought me to tears. All of these things are going on. And you're spending your time attacking kids, trans youth, right? And our families. It is incomprehensible. So what are we doing? We're doing the work that we can to make sure that people have the tools and resources to survive today. We were active in Kansas when that horrible bill passed trying to take away people's driver's licenses just for being trans. We've been doing a ton of work with people that have been kicked out of the military with a ban on trans people serving in the military. We've been doing a lot of work in schools and workplaces around the efforts to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion, the impact that that has on our lives every single day. So we're trying to give folks tools just to survive the moment that we're in. And at the same time, build the power that we need to change the politics and make sure that the laws are once again in favor of equality. Just over the last year, we've had over 500,000 new people raise their hand and signed up as members of the Human Rights Campaign. That's members of our community, but that's parents and allies and grandparents and aunties and gunkles and everybody else too, because they know what's at stake. And when folks come for our trans community, when they come for the LGBTQ plus community, it's usually the forefront of what they plan to do to restrict all of our rights. So that's really clear right now. And I think our biggest thing is making sure that people can feel safer in their lives today and building the power that we need and winning some elections come this November to make sure that we get back on the right side of progress.
You bring up such a good point that people are starting, I hope, to connect the dots that whatever they do to the most vulnerable among us, they are going to eventually do to everyone else. And I've been talking a lot about what happened in Kansas, because if they can just take away someone's ID,
Right.
they can take away anyone's ID. Are you starting to see that people are starting to connect the dots?
Absolutely. And I think that's why you see such a powerful presence at things like No Kings. I'm reminded that the first No Kings March, I think that there were about 2,000 events and a couple million people.
Mhm.
The second one, there were 2,500 events and I think 10 million people. And now we're looking at 3,000 events, and who knows how many millions of folks will turn out, not only in the United States, but around the world. That to me shows that people are understanding the urgency of this moment and coming into the fight. And look, when you look around the world, I think that we're actually seeing, and you named this earlier, trends towards authoritarianism, trends towards fascism and this right-wing extremism that's emerging in a lot of places. But the difference that's happening here is that this authoritarian regime is not delivering on anything to make people's lives better. So at the same time as things are more expensive than they've ever been, that housing costs are high, that folks still don't feel safer in their neighborhoods, you're also seeing a restriction on our rights. So this is really, I think, given us a unique organizing moment to say that maybe some of the systems that have been in place haven't been serving us, period, right? Like right now, we're actually having conversations about term limits on the United States Supreme Court. We're talking about what it means for everyone to have access to the vote. Conversations we didn't even have under, a Democratic presidency, folks are entertaining right now. So I think I bring all this up because I think it shows not only the interconnectivity of our issues, but also the opportunity that we have to really look at the institutions of our democracy that can be evolved to ensure that we actually have a representational democracy into the future.
Well, it's kind of don't know what you got until it's gone for a
Come
lot of
on.
people.
Come on.
And a lot of people have taken stability for granted. And that's supposed to be the bedrock, right, of the American dream. And now we see even we can't expect to go to the airport and not wait in line for 5 hours or have ICE agents roaming around. And so I sort of think that they shot themselves in the foot with putting ICE in the airports, because they're exposing a whole group of people to this kind of authoritarian behavior that maybe wouldn't have been exposed before. Business travelers, for example.
That's right. That's right. And look, we're in the age of social media that when anything happens, it makes its way around the world in a millisecond. We are experiencing it almost firsthand from seeing these live accounts play out. And look, it just is one of those moments where, like you said, they are giving us the best examples of why elections matter right here and right now. And the bar was low for Donald Trump. All he had to do was not be a dictator. That's all he had to do.
He was like, I'm going to do it on day one. And then I guess it felt so good. He just kept going with it.
He just kept going.
But here, like, the LGBTQ community has so much experience with fighting. We've been fighting this entire time before Trump, before Obama, it's a lifelong fight. And so do you feel people are starting to learn how we do it, how we stay both joyful and fight at the same time?
I think that we're forced to relearn how we do it, right? For me, I think that there's some reminding that we have to do of ourselves in movement work all the time. There was a moment in the LGBTQ plus fight for equality where it felt like progress seemed inevitable, right? Like, you had Barack Obama in the White House and rainbow flags everywhere. We were complaining about the pink washing of corporations, right? Like these things were happening. And I think that we almost forgot or made ourselves believe that we were further along in our progress than we actually were. Because even as those things felt inevitable, we have never had the same civil rights and protections as other protected classes in this country. We have never had the representation, right, of our voices and our lives that matches the size of our community in this country. Those things have never been true. So I actually think that right now we've had to kind of shake the movement into realizing that, look, we weren't as close to equality as we thought, and everything that we even thought that we had could be removed in a millisecond, as we saw, in the Dobbs decision, where, the right to abortion access was overturned in a single day. So I think that we're having to go back to our roots as a movement, really get back to the storytelling piece of the work, making sure that we're particularly giving dignity and humanity to trans lives and the storytelling that we do, and meeting people where they are without making assumptions about what they may believe about our lives and our rights. But that kind of movement building is something that we do know how to do, from the 80s when we fought in the AIDS crisis to get healthcare for our community, from the marriage fights to, what we're working on right now around trans lives. We've got the muscle, but we got to exercise it once again and not take anything, and I mean anything, for granted.
Well, and I think sometimes it's taking things for granted, but also people are exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And so when someone is exhausted and they see someone marginalized, being hurt by all of these policies, it may be very difficult to say, oh, I'm going to take extra time out of my day to try to help this community unless there's something in it for me. And I hate to think that this is the case, but I think a lot of times now we're starting to see people move because they realize, oh yes, preserving democracy that's what's in it for me, for many people. But at the same time, I am looking around and I'm saying, okay, we have trans youth who are being attacked. We have trans adults now who are being attacked because it started with trans youth. And we're moving into a time where people are going, oh, well, if we don't stand up now, it may be too late for
Yes.
everyone. What do you say to the people who are, even as Trans Day of Visibility is coming up, it's a little scary to stand up now before it's too late. A lot of people are feeling like, oh, it might already be a little too late. What advice do you have for those who are a little fearful in this moment?
Yeah. Look, the hopeful part of it for me is that there is courage in community, right? When we show up in numbers that are unmistakable, that actually gives us more safety and more strength in every single thing that we do. The other, hard truth is that in this last season of movement building, I think that we have allowed ourselves to believe that challenging systems of power is safe. It's not. Look, I'm sitting here before you as a Black queer woman in the United States of America. I am very clear the sacrifices that those who came before me made so that I could exist, so that my life would be possible. And unfortunately, I think that we're finding ourselves in one of those moments of the story of America, one of those moments where the challenge and the crisis is so acute that we need good people that are willing to stand strong and firm in their values, and yes, sometimes take a risk if we're going to protect this dream and this ideal of democracy. And that's happening right now. I'm reminded John Lewis once said, talking about folks in the movement, we can get tired too easy. We can't allow ourselves to get tired. Look, this is a time.
I mean, it's like grab an energy drink. I sometimes, I say to myself, I will not fatigue. I think about my grandmother and what she had to go through. She was, born in 1912 in North Carolina. And if she could make it through, if she could survive and continue to fight, I tell myself, all right, Maya, you're very privileged in this way. So you too can continue to fight. But I do understand the exhaustion in many ways. And so I tell people it's okay to take a break and it's okay to disengage. That being said, the attacks are constant. The attacks they really don't slow down. And so I want to shift a little bit to the global fight. Have you been following at all what has happened with the anti-trans laws in Portugal?
Yes. And it's hard too, because I feel like a lot of this stuff has been exported from the United States of America. And again, if we go back, even 10 years ago and look at the fight for LGBTQ plus equality, we thought that we were going to be exporting the best of the laws of this country. And instead, the opposite has occurred. And even worse, when you look beyond the kind of European countries and across the world, the way that they are weaponizing some of the tools that we created to advance equality is horrific. But I think we're in one of those moments too, where people are wondering, well, where can I go? Especially, if folks are privileged enough to have the resources, where can I go to find places where I can be safe? And Portugal has been a place where a lot of people actually moved.
Oh, that's exactly that. And this is the key part that I wanted to talk about, because if we just go back, and pattern matching is very important to me. If we just go back even 4 years ago, people had this idea that if you're in a blue state, you're safe. So you can kind of ignore things, or you can move from a red state to a blue state if you want to. And we already saw what happened with that. So to just talk those parallels there about, you can't run from fascism. It will catch up with you.
It absolutely will, by design. And so a lot of times I think people think that we're losing right now, and I push back against the premise a little bit, right? Because if I look at the last 60 years in the United States, we have made incredible progress on a number of civil rights issues, right? Like, there's somebody sitting around that cannot believe that we got a whole Civil Rights Act, that the Defense of Marriage Act, which banned same-sex marriage, was overturned, and now we have the Respect for Marriage Act on the books. They can't believe women are out here with credit cards and buying their homes, right? And all of that happened just in the last 60 years of United States history. And I bring that up because I wonder, and this is my curiosity, if there's an opportunity for us to reverse, to move, to actually advance change more quickly into the future than we once thought. I mean, again, LGBTQ plus people in the last 20 years, going from marriage being banned in the country to marriage being a federal law that we have access to, is huge. So I'm wondering if in this moment of backlash, where you said no one is safe in any part of the country, if it actually gives us an opportunity, when we have more institutional power, to rewrite laws and policies more effectively that actually give us greater protections than we once had. And again, a lot of this is coming out of my experience at Planned Parenthood, where, Dobbs being overturned around the privacy argument, it actually exposed that there were so many ways that people didn't have access to abortion overall anyway, even with Dobbs being the law of the books. So my question for us that are kind of leaders and thinkers is, what would need to be true on the other side of this? If we respond to backlash in the intense ways that we're seeing right now to actually advance change, what are we actually fighting for that can give us more safety and protections than the infrastructure of laws that we had before?
Right. And a stability that would not allow for the far right wing parties to be able to create wedge issues, because it seems like there's always
Yes.
the ability for them to just take trans people and throw them under the bus. And that immediately splinters any progressive coalition. And they've managed to do that so well by, as you mentioned, copying what we've done in the US. And so I did a little digging, and it turns out the Chega party here in Portugal, their leader was at CPAC in both Brazil and in Hungary. And so they're building these coalitions across boundaries, across borders. And it feels like we are having a little bit of a rough patch, I'm seeing, building these kind of coalitions as we're seeing front runners start to speak up for or against particular issues going into the midterms. And so I would love to hear your take on what it means to stand boldly on business, like Mom Donnie does, for example.
Yes. And I think we're starting to see some people be able to do that. And, for me, I think that you're right. When you trace either the money or the people back, it always comes back to the same institutions, right? The Heritage Foundation of it all, the CPAC of it all. They are doing a tremendous job of organizing their ideas and their resources to proliferate hate. We have to respond in kind and get serious about standing on business all across the world and not relenting. And this is what I love that we saw in the 2025 elections, is that we had candidates that were attacked with the same kind of anti-trans messages, wedge issues as they were in 2024. But rather than being silent on the issues, they responded affirmatively, swiftly, and clearly, and were able to produce tremendous victories. Like you said, Mondani in New York, he wins by huge margins. In fact, 14% of the electorate were LGBTQ plus people. Abigail Spanberger in Virginia won that race by 15 points, huge margin in the state of Virginia, by being authentic and clear about who she was and not giving an inch on trans lives. Same thing in New Jersey and so many other races. So to me, the lesson learned going into 2026 is that candidates cannot be silent when these wedge issues are put before them. And they also have to be clear about who they are. Look, if you look uncomfortable talking about trans issues, if you look uncomfortable talking about the wedge issues, that will get you more so than any words that come out of your mouth. You have to be clear about who you are and authentic in communicating with your constituents. And when you do that, even if people don't have as much information about whatever the particular issue is, we find that voters build trust with you, and they know that you're willing to shoot straight with them about issues that matter, and they're willing to vote for that too. I think that we saw that, time after time in the last election cycle.
Well, yeah, you're right to cite all of these case studies where it absolutely worked. And so it feels like now the blueprint is there, the template is there, especially when you mentioned Abigail Spanberger, because her MAGA opponent really just tried to drive in. It was a little insane when I watched some of the debate. I was like, I can't see how Abigail Spanberger wouldn't win. But yeah, the template is there now, and yet some of the people that I feel should be embracing the template are not. Can we talk about framing, because that is what we're talking about now, right? Framing narrative. How can people at home have these conversations in a productive way, in particular online, because that's where it seems like a lot of the narrative fights play out in comments under particular, politicians saying things that they should or they shouldn't. What can people do to help push this coalition together as opposed to apart?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is not being silent and the power of sharing your own story. I was just with a mom of a trans kid yesterday, and she said, I'm just praying for the day that I can worry more about my kid finishing their vegetables at dinner than whether or not they're going to survive to the next day.
Thank you.
Stories like that, like it humanizes what this is really about. I don't care if you're cisgender or transgender, if you're Black or white, if you're gay or straight, if you're whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all trying to raise our kids, live our lives, find a little joy, and contribute in this world. And I think something has happened in this political rhetoric and dialogue that tries to force us to miss that commonness that we have as humans. So, I've said this a lot, but some of our movement work just has to go back to basics, telling our stories of who we are, and connecting with folks. And even if you want to disagree with me, that's fine. But you can't disagree that I'm a human that's just trying to live in the same way that you are. So I always encourage folks to lean into that piece of storytelling. You don't have to know everything about every issue. But you do have to be clear about not being silent in the face of some of this hateful speech, because oftentimes it's not coming from a person that really harbors that sentiment. I mean, sometimes it is. That's a different conversation. But when it's not, it's usually someone that's gotten a piece of information that they don't understand, that needs someone to talk to about it. And that someone could be you. And if it is, I mean, that can be transformative for so many people.
Well, and that the information that's out there, right? And we see the sort of templated anti-trans information, disinformation that comes out. How can people find good information as opposed to just opinions? I know there are resources more than likely on HRC website.
Yes, please come to us. And especially, we've got two really good reports on our website. One is called 1 Year In, and it's about the experience of LGBTQ plus people 1 year into this Trump administration. And I mean, you see some things that are really sobering. Like we found that more than half of our nearly half of our community is back in the closet in some area of their lives just in the last year because of the threats and attacks that folks are experiencing. But it's got real data about our lives and experiences that I think is really helpful in telling the story of where we are today. There's also a report called 1 Year Out, meaning 1 year out from the 2026 elections. That's exactly what you talked about before. It's a messaging playbook, particularly meant for candidates and folks that are running for office to know how to talk about these issues. And it's just what we talked about before. Don't go silent, stand on business, be clear about who you are, and point out the hypocrisy of your opposition. But it puts all that into an easy to use framework. So if you're running for a school board or if you're running for Congress, you can use this tool to help respond to these anti-trans attacks that we know will come.
Well, and one of the messages that I've heard used by a few candidates is that obviously it's not trans kids that are making your groceries more expensive. It's billionaires that are making life unaffordable. Is that something that you feel? Again, I see it repeated by a couple, but not as many. When right wing puts out talking points, they're all echoing it, parroting it across every single social media channel, Fox News. I'd love to see us more disciplined in our repetition.
You're telling me. And yes, that's the hypocrisy of it all, right? They're focused on the wrong 1%. And look, I think that we're at a moment where people really see this. Like, it is unbelievable that the world is going to see its first trillionaire soon, right? It's unbelievable that billionaires aren't paying taxes. Meanwhile, we're deporting immigrants who are tax-paying folks, right? It is unbelievable. And I think pointing out those sorts of extremist positions that folks have, not only on some issues, but usually on a lot of issues, right, is so, so, so important. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is making these fights that we're talking about real for the person that you're talking to, right? And it's the things that you said, the ICE agents at the TSA airport, the cost of gas and eggs, the things that are impacting folks every day. If you can connect with people about those things and deliver a clear message about, if you're running for office, what you're going to do about it, that is the difference maker. And it shuts out all the noise that they're trying to create by attacking our trans community and our trans kids, by getting to the issues that truly matter. Because we know that when they go hard on these anti-trans ads, it's usually because they don't have anything else to offer to the voters.
Right. And they've not delivered, which is why we see so many special elections. We're seeing where it's flipping from red to blue in places that we would not expect at all. Community is so important to sustaining this fight. And so going into No Kings Weekend, I am really hoping that people are not just going by themselves, but bringing other people along with them. What are you hoping to see about this coming weekend that may be a little bit different than the No Kings protests from previous cycles? I guess the last one was in October, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited because impossible things are happening, right? I mean, you talked about these races in Mar-a-Lago yesterday. There was a seat that was flipped, right? And the funny thing is, you've heard all the advocacy around the SAVE Act from this administration, which, the Steal the Election Act. Donald Trump voted by mail in that election, right? And they still lost. But I bring that up because I hope that what comes out of No Kings this time is the momentum that we need to keep ourselves hopeful and inspired as we go towards November. Because look, impossible things are happening every day. We're winning elections that are in Republican plus 15 districts. We're seeing more and more people show up and show out for our community. And in the midst of all the harm that we see, people are not losing hope. Now it's time to turn all of that hope into the action that we need to change the balance of power and get the tools that we need, the votes that we need to actually protect our people. This No Kings is at a critical time to make that real. And that's why I hope that folks show up, show out, find the energy and community that you need, because we can't afford to get tired right now.
No, we absolutely cannot. And I love the energy that you are bringing to all of this. And so I encourage everybody to find a friend, a neighbor, bring them out to No Kings, because I love a good protest. It makes me realize that, oh, we actually do care about our rights and we're going to continue
Right.
to fight for them. And we have the momentum. I love what you said earlier in the show, that a lot of people are thinking we're not winning, but we actually are winning. And I think the evidence for that is how hysterical the Trump administration is acting right now. I mean, they are, between the crazy, insane memes coming out of the Department of Homeland Security,
Right.
they just look crazy. Their messaging looks crazy. Even Caroline Levitt, she looks a little sad up there now. Like before, she had like a pep in her step. Now I can just see in her face, she's like, I can't do this much longer. And we do. We have the wind beneath our wings going into
That's
this weekend.
right. That's right.
So thank you so much for joining us, Kelley. You, of course, are welcome back anytime. And I can't wait to see photos from you and hopefully good signs from this weekend.
Yes. Yes. Well, thanks for having me, Maya, and good luck in Lisbon this week.
Thanks so much. Bye.